Good afternoon, students. Welcome to our third day of our second week's discussion. So today, we are going to read and understand an oral tradition written by Anne Terry White. But before that, let's have an activity first. So this is for the test 1, Guide for Reading. Read the following text carefully. Note the following background information as you read the text. So, this is the author. Anne Terry White, in 1896, who was born in Russia, had worked as a teacher, a social worker, and a translator of Russian literature. Amongst her most loved tales is The Gorgon's Head. So this is the oral tradition that we are going to read afterwards. So what is an oral tradition? An oral tradition is the manner in which information is passed from one generation to the next in the absence of writing or a recording medium. In the days before near universal literacy, bards would sing or chant their people's stories. They employed various techniques to aid in their own memory and to help their listeners keep track of the story. This oral tradition was a way to keep the history or culture of the people alive, and since it was a form of storytelling, it was a popular entertainment. So in other words, an oral tradition is passed down from generation to generation through a form of a storytelling. So as you read the myth, look for the heroic qualities of Perseus and the personal challenges he has to overcome to acquire the Gorgon's head. Okay, before reading the text, I want you to accomplish the story anticipation guide below. So first, before reading, mark the checklist with / if you agree or X if you disagree with the statement. After reading, fill in the column with the page number of the text where you found the correct answer for each statement. And third, reflection. Are you correct? If not, what did you learn? So this is the table that you are going to accomplish. So as you can see, there are 5 sentences in the table. So all you have to do is write a / if you agree with the statement and X if you disagree with the statement. So you can answer this in the K-12 e-learning site after this session. So let us continue with reading the Gorgon's Head, or the text, the Gorgon's Head. Now let us read and understand the story of the Gorgon's Head from ancient Greece by Anne Terry White. Acrisius, king of Argos, came home from Delphi with a heavy heart, for he had received a dreadful oracle. "No sons shall be born to you," the priestess had told him, "but you shall have a grandson, and by his hand you shall die." Now the king had an only daughter, who was yet a maiden. So in his distress he thought, "I will evade my fate. I will shut Danae up away from the sight of men, in a house of bronze all sunk underground." And he carried out his cruel plan. But Acrisius forgot to take the gods into account. Part of the roof of the house was open to the sky, and one day, as lovely Danae sat sadly looking up at the passing clouds, Zeus beheld the maiden. Changing himself into a shower of gold, he stormed into her chamber. When afterwards a son was born to Danae, she hid him from her father's sight. Nevertheless, the king discovered the baby, and was more than ever filled with fear. He dared not kill little Perseus directly, lest the gods avenge the murder. Instead, he had a great chest built, placed Danae and her boy in it, and set them adrift upon the sea. All day and all night the chest tossed upon the waves. Danae lulled her child with song, and he slept. But when the dawn came, a great wave picked up the chest and carried it close to the tiny island of Seriphus. It happened that a fisherman, Dictys by name, saw the chest bobbing on the waves close to the shore. He dragged the box to the land and opened it. When he beheld the pitiful mother with a helpless little child, his heart was moved. He took them both to his wife, for Dictys was childless, and there in the kindly fisher folk's humble home Perseus grew up. Now, Danae had been a beautiful maiden, and when Perseus had grown into a fine tall youth, she was still beautiful. So it was not strange that King Polydectes, who was Dictys' brother, fell in love with her and made her his wife. But the king hated the youth just because Danae doted on him and sought some way to get rid of him. At last Polydectes said to his stepson, "The time has come, Perseus, for you to win glory for yourself in some bold adventure." Young Perseus thought so too, but what should the adventure be? "I think," the wily Polydectes said, "it would be a good idea for you to cut off the Medusa's head. That would bring you to the greatest fame." All unsuspecting, Perseus set off to find Medusa, not knowing in the least how perilous an adventure he had undertaken. For Medusa was one of the 3 Gorgons, terrible winged monsters who live alone on an island. They had teeth like the tusks of a boar, hands of a brass, and snakes instead of hair. Perseus did not know where to look for the Gorgons, nor did he know which of them was Medusa, and this was important, for Medusa was the only one of the 3 that could be slain. From place to place the prince went on his quest, getting more and more discouraged. Then one day he beheld a young man of great beauty, wearing winged sandals and a winged cap, and carrying in his hand a wand around which 2 golden serpents twined. Perseus knew at once that this was Hermes, and was overjoyed when the god said, "Perseus, I approve the high adventure you have in mind, but you must be properly equipped for it. Without the winged sandals, the magic wallet, and the helmet of invisibility, but I will take you to the gray women. You can find out from them." "And will they indeed tell me?" Perseus asked. "Not willingly," Hermes replied, "but you can make them do it. They have but one eye shared among the 3. Snatch it from them as they pass it from one to another, and none can see. And do not give it back till they tell you what you want to know." With that, Hermes gave Perseus a magnificent curved sword. "You will need it," he said, "for Medusa's scales are hard as metal." Perseus had just taken the sword when there was a sudden brightness in the sky, and he beheld the goddess Athene descending toward them. "Of what use will be your sword, my brother?" she said to Hermes, "when none may look the Gorgons and live? The sight of them, as you will know, turns men into stone. Take my bright shield, Perseus. Look into it instead of at the monster as you approach to do the battle, and you will see the Medusas reflected as in a mirror." So saying, the goddess disappeared, and the brightness with her. On and on with God companion, Perseus journeyed farther than man had ever been. At last they came to the end of the earth. There the weird gray women sat, passing their eye from one another, just as Hermes said. Danae's son knew what to do. He left the god and crept quietly towards them, waited till one had taken the eye from her forehead, and snatched it away as she passed it to her sister. The gray women raised a fearful clamor when they realized that a stranger had their eye. They howled and they threatened. But without the eye they were helpless, and in the end they grudgingly told Perseus the way to the nymphs of the north. So again Perseus went on, this time to find the happy beings who possessed the three priceless things he needed. And when the nymphs heard the reason he wanted them, they were willing to give him the winged shoes, the helmet that would make him invisible, and the magic wallet that would become the right size for whatever he wishes to carry. Fully equipped now, Perseus lightly sped through the air, over land, and over sea to the fearful island of the Gorgons. As he approached, he could see, scattered in the fields and along the roads, statues of men and beasts, whom the sight of the Gorgons had turned stone. And at last, from high above, he beheld the monsters themselves reflected in his shield. Their scale-covered bodies glistened in the sun. Their great wings were folded. The snakes that were their hair lay hideously coiled and intertwined. The Gorgons were asleep, but which of the three was Medusa? Perseus could see no difference among them. Suddenly he heard Athena's voice. Descend, Perseus, and strike. The Gorgon nearest the shore is Medusa. Perseus swept down, and still gazing into the shield, boldly swung his blade. With one stroke he cut off the grisly head. Then, springing into the air, he thrust his prize, all writhing and hissing, into the magic wallet. Up leaped the Gorgon's sisters, for they heard the rattle of Medusa's scales as the severed body thrashed about. They turned their snaky heads, and when they saw Perseus they roared with fury. Flapping their great wings, they set off in pursuit. But they could not outstrip the winged sandals. Over lands and peoples the hero flew on and on. He had lost his way now, for Hermes had left him. Below the Libyan desert stretched endlessly. Perseus did not know what those sands were, nor did he guess that the ruby drops falling from Medusa's head were turning into venomous snakes that would inhabit the desert forever. But now he saw a sight that made his heart beat fast with excitement and wonder. Fastened by chains to a cliff by the sea was a beautiful maiden. Had it not been that a slight breeze stirred her hair and that tears flowed from her eyes, he would have thought her a statue. Perseus almost forgot to keep his winged sandals moving, so struck was he by her rare beauty. "Lovely maiden, you should not wear such chains as these," he stammered out, "but rather those which binds the hearts of lovers. I pray you tell me your name and why you are bound like this." At first the girl made no reply, so abashed was she before the youth. But when he urged her again and again to speak, she told him all her story. "I am Andromeda," she said, "daughter of Cepheus, king of the Ethiopians. The beautiful Cassiopeia is my mother. It is her beauty that has chained me here, for the gods are jealous, and in nothing may we mortals surpass them. Woe, woe, the day my mother vaunted her fairer than the daughters of Nereus. The sea god has sent a serpent to prey upon our people, and my death alone can appease his anger. So says the oracle." She had scarcely finished speaking when the loud roaring of the waves announced that the monster was on his way. Andromeda shrieked. At her cry, her frantic father and mother came running. They clung to their daughter and lamented. "Enough of tears," Perseus said to them sternly. "I am Perseus, son of Zeus and Danae. Now I will make this contract with you that Andromeda shall be mine if I save her from the serpent. Indeed, indeed, valorous youth, she shall be yours. Only save her from the monster, and you shall have our kingdom as well as our daughter." The monster was coming on, his breast parting the waves like a swift ship. Suddenly Perseus sprang into the air and shot high up in the clouds. Seeing the huge shadow upon the sea, the monster attacked it in fury. Then Perseus swooped like an eagle from the sky and buried his sword up to the hilt into the beast's right shoulder. The creature reared upright, then plunged beneath the water and turned around and around like some fierce wild boar in the midst of baying hounds. Nimbly avoiding the snapping jaws, Perseus dealt blow after blow wherever he had the chance to strike. Red blood poured from the monster's mouth. The air was so filled with spray that the hero's winged sandals grew heavy. He dared not trust himself to them longer. Spying a rock over which the waves were breaking, he braced himself against it with his left hand, and 4 times he drove his sword into the monster's side. As the creature sank to its death, Perseus heard shouts of joy from the shore, and when he looked, Andromeda already stood free beside her parents. "I will take fair maiden without dowry," Perseus said, and the wedding was celebrated. Torches were tossed in the air, incense was thrown on the flames, garlands were hung from the palace roof, and everywhere the sound of lyres and pipes and singing was heard. Now while the marriage feast was at its height, the door of the banquet hall was suddenly flung open, and in burst a mob of shouting, riotous men. Foremost stood Andromeda's uncle, Phineus, javelin in hand. "Behold, I am here," he cried. "I have come to avenge the death of my promised bride." How do you think would Andromeda react to this offer if it happened in our time? "What are you doing, brother?" the father cried. "Do you, who stood by and watched her while Andromeda was put in chains, and did nothing to help her, dare to be indignant because another has snatched the prize? Let the man who rescued her have the reward he was promised. He has not been chosen in preference to you, but in preference to certain death." Phineus said not a word. He looked from the king to Perseus, undecided at which to aim his weapon, then hurled it at the hero. The spear stuck in Perseus' couch. Perseus leaped up from the cushions, wrenched out the spear, and hurled it back at his foe. Had Phineus not taken refuge behind the altar, he would have perished. As it was, one of his followers received the weapon full in his forehead. Then the rioters went wild. Weapons were hurled, and the feast turned into battle. Thick as hail, javelins sped by Perseus' ears. He set his shoulders against a great stone column, and struck down one man after another. But at last he realized that valor could not withstand the numbers against him. "If I have any friends here, let hide their faces," he shouted. With this he drew Medusa's head out of the wallet. One of the attackers was just preparing to cast his javelin, but before he could cast, he was torn to stone. Another, who was about to thrust his sword through Perseus, stood frozen with it in his hand. A third was turned to stone even as he uttered a taunt. 200 men became stony statues before Phineus yielded, crying, "Put away your horrible weapon! Hide it! Grant me only my life, and may the rest be yours." "What I can give you, most cowardly Phineus, I will." Perseus replied, "You shall be a lasting monument here in the palace of my father-in-law." The unhappy Phineus tried to turn away his eyes, but even as he did so, his flesh turned to stone. When at the year's end, Perseus sailed home with Andromeda. Polydectes' hatred had in no way lessened. The king was furious that his stepson had returned and refused to believe that he had actually slain Medusa. With scornful Trojans he upbraided the young man for having home empty-handed. It was more than Perseus could bear. "I shall prove to you that what I say is true," he cried. "Hide your eyes, all you who are my friends." And he showed the Gorgon's head to the cruel Polydectes. That was the last time Perseus ever used the horrible head. He gave it most willingly to Athene, who kept it ever after. Do you think that Perseus' extraordinary ability is a gift? Why or why not? Now that Polydectes was dead, Danae yearned to go home again and be reconciled with her father. So Perseus made the fisherman Dectus king of the island, and sailed with his mother and Andromeda to Greece. But it happened that when they came to Argos, King Acrisius was away from home. Games were being held in Larissa, and Perseus, hearing of them, decided to go there and take part. And there at the game it was the oracle which Acrisius had received at Delphi was strangely fulfilled. For when it came to Perseus' turn to throw the discus, he threw it so that it swerved to one side. It landed among the spectators and killed an old man. That old man was King Acrisius, who had gone to several lengths to avoid the fate which the gods had ordained. And that is the end of the story of the Gorgon's head. Now, to summarize the story of the Gorgon's head, King Acrisius received a dreadful oracle that there will be no sons shall be born to him, but he will have a grandson, and by the hand of his grandson he will die. The king had only daughter named Danae, and in his distress he thought of evading his fate, so he shot down Danae up from away from the sight of men. But Zeus beheld the maiden, and had a son named Perseus. When King Acrisius found out that Danae had a son, he placed them in a great chest built and set them adrift upon the sea. Along the sea, a man named Dictys from Seraphus saw the chest and opened it. And after opening the chest, he saw Perseus and his mother Danae. Dictys took them in, and in the fisher folk's humble home Perseus grew up. Perseus' mother married to Dictys' brother, King Polydectes. Polydectes hated Perseus, so the king sent Perseus to an adventure. Perseus was sent to an adventure to cut off Medusa's head, a Gorgon who lived alone on an island. Perseus was able to get help from the gods, and Hermes was the first. Hermes told him the things he needed in order to defeat and slay the monster Medusa: the winged sandals, magic wallet, and the helmet of invisibility. In order to acquire these things, Perseus needed to ask the Grey Women. The Grey Women told Perseus what he needed to know, for Perseus had snatched their one eye. Hermes had also carved a sword for Perseus, and Athena also gave him a shield so he can cut off Medusa's head in its reflection, not by directly looking at the Gorgons, because they have the power to turn a man or an animal into stone just by looking at them. Perseus was successful in cutting off Medusa's head. So below the Libyan desert, Perseus saw a beautiful maiden in chains. He asked her name, and after asking over and over again, the beautiful maiden spoke and told him everything. Andromeda was the daughter of King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia, whom the gods was jealous on for her beauty. And the sea god sent a serpent to prey on the people of Ethiopia. Andromeda's death alone could appease the anger of the sea god. So when the serpent came for Andromeda, Perseus protected her and fought the serpent. The serpent was successfully defeated by Perseus, and married Andromeda as what they had agreed on by her parents before battling with the serpent. Perseus and Andromeda married in Ethiopia. And in the feast, the rioters and Phineas stormed in. Phineas wanted to claim his promised bride, and he hurled his javelin to Perseus. But Perseus dodged it and hurled it back to Phineas. Phineas was almost killed if he was not able to take refuge behind the altar. Perseus fought with the rioters, and with the help of the Gorgon's head, the rioters and Phineas all turned into stones. Perseus with Andromeda, they left Ethiopia to go back home to bring the Gorgon's head to King Polydectes. Polydectes could not believe that Perseus had cut off Medusa's head, so Perseus proved to him by turning him into stone. Polydectes is now dead, and Perseus gave the Gorgon's head to Athena after that for safekeeping. Danae and her son Perseus, along with Andromeda, they sailed to Greece to be reconciled by King Acrisius. And when they arrived in Argos, the king was away from home. So now there was a game held in Larissa. Perseus took part in it, and there the oracle was strangely fulfilled. Perseus threw the discus, and it landed to a spectator and killed an old man named Acrisius, the king, who had come to cruel lengths to avoid his fate. We have read and understand the Gorgon's head. So now let us answer the task 2, dissecting the text. So you can answer this in a 1/2 sheet of paper, and after writing this on your 1/2 sheet of paper, you can transfer it in the K-12 e-learning site. So there are 9 questions. So first is, what is the dreadful oracle that was delivered to King Acrisius? Second, what adventure does Polydectes suggest that Perseus undertake? Third, list 3 perilous encounters that Perseus experienced during his adventure. Fourth, explain how the oracle given to King Acrisius is fulfilled. Fifth, what is Polydectes' true motive in sending Perseus to kill Medusa? Sixth, Medusa was beheaded by Perseus, yet her head continued to have power. Explain how the evil Gorgon's head is beneficial to Perseus. 7. What heroic characteristics does Perseus have? 8. What help does he get on his quest? And lastly, the 9th, how does Perseus' quest enable him to prove himself a hero? For your third activity, I need you to visualize the text. So, write your answer in a 1/2 sheet of paper. And again, after answering this on your 1/2 sheet of paper, you can transfer it on your K-12 e-learning site. So first is, create a timeline of events in the story. Why are these significant events? Second, create a Venn diagram that compares the characteristics of Perseus and Medusa. Provide evidence. Third, create a diagram that shows the challenges of Perseus in his quest to acquire the Gorgon's head. How did you choose them? Fourth, using the Gorgon's head as a diagram, point out at least 5 utterances of Perseus that strike you the most. Explain why. Then fifth, create a that shows the relationship of all the characters in the myth. Cite the reasons for these relationships. For the next activity, task 4, my coat of arms. To be able to kill the Gorgon, Perseus built a line of defenses. So I want you to identify what these defenses are through the coat of arms diagram. Explain the value of each of those defenses as Perseus faced his challenges. So below this slide is your personal coat of arms. So after this session, I want you to transfer your answers at the K-12 e-learning site. Now let's proceed for our generalizations for today's discussion. What events in the myth that could happen in real life? So you can answer this on your K-12 e-learning account after this session. So let's proceed to the next. Now let's have an activity. So this is for your evaluation in today's discussion. So read the direction first. Read the question carefully and write your answer in a 1/4 sheet of paper, and you have 10 points for this. So after writing this on your 1/4 sheet of paper, you can transfer it in the K-12 e-learning site. So the question is, what are the insights you've learned from the selection the Gorgons had? Thank you for your participation, and I hope that you learned a lot from today's discussion. Thank you again, and may God bless you on the next discussion.